both were right.
The routinely unique is something that we know about. There's the three-piece suit in Barcelona, the marching briefcases in Pasadena, the likes of Oscar the Grouch grumbling in Germany. That's routine, and the routine of edition 363 of a total of 367 unique tellings of Overnight.
On Monday, several grown men glued things to their heads and jumped up and down while attached to large rubber bands. This is news. This is research. The men were the scientists of Space Lab 1, which is orbiting the Earth right now, because all went well Monday morning at Cape Canaveral. It's the biggest crew we've sent into space so far, and it carries the first foreigner to ride an American rocket into space. He is a West German physicist. The European Space Agency built the lab. The shuttle Columbia took it up. And as usual, what is important depends on where you sit. We'll show you some of the coverage of West German TV, but first, here, where we collectively sit, the launch, 11 a.m. Florida.
The Space Lab countdown is now complete. T-minus 20 seconds. 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 10. We have go for main engine start. 8, 7, 6. We have main engine start. 3, 2, 1. Solid motor ignition and liftoff. Liftoff of Columbia and the first flight of the European Space Agency's Space Lab. The shuttle has cleared the tower.
Roger, roll. Vehicle rolling from tail south, round 2, 35 degree azimuth, northeast. Roger. Throttling up from 85% back to the 488,000 pounds of thrust that each of Columbia's new engines has. SRB has separated. SRB engines have pulled away from the spacecraft at this time.
Welcome to Space Lab.
Okay. We're just moving into Space Lab right now.
Left of the field of view, Mission Specialist Owen Garriott, and to the right, Payload Specialist Byron Lichtenberg, followed by a European Space Agency Payload Specialist Ulf Merbold, now in Space Lab module for the first time.
And guess who was the star on German television Monday night?
In diesen Minuten rast die Weltraumfähre Columbia mit Ulf Merbold an Bord in einer Höhe von 250 Kilometern über den südindischen Ozean. Space Lab und Ulf, oder wie die Amerikaner sagen, Alf Merbold, werden von der amerikanischen Presse umfangreich gewürdigt. Dieses Weltraumunternehmen sei der Auftakt zu einer noch intensiveren Zusammenarbeit zwischen Europa und Amerika, heißt es heute in der New York Times. An die Tradition von Werner von Braun anknüpfend sind die Deutschen dieses Mal wieder groß dabei.
Jetzt durch das Space Lab und auch durch die finanzielle Beteiligung, die ja in den vorherigen Jahren gefehlt hat, kann Deutschland auch stärker in den Vordergrund treten. Bisher waren es eben nur die deutschen Gehirne, die bei der Weltraumfahrt mitgeholfen haben. Nun ist es auch die deutsche Wirtschaft, die deutsche Industrie, der deutsche Steuerzahler.
Space Lab sei das beste neue Fahrzeug, was NASA bislang gesehen habe, erklärte ein Vertreter der amerikanischen Weltraumbehörde. Zum ersten Mal sind mehr Wissenschaftler als Piloten an Bord, 4:2. 70 Experimente sollen durchgeführt werden, auch militärische. Frage an Jesko von Puttkammer von der NASA.
In all diesen Experimenten, die wie gesagt also hauptsächlich auf europäischem Schwerpunkt liegen, befindet sich kein einziges militärisches Experiment. Wir sind verpflichtet, hier nach amerikanischem Gesetz solche Flüge zivil durchzuführen.
Die Weltraumfähre wird auch über die Sowjetunion fliegen. 9 Tage soll das Unternehmen insgesamt dauern. Dann geht es mit einer hoffentlich glatten Landung auf Edwards Air Force Base in Kalifornien zu Ende. Die Anpassung an die Schwerelosigkeit gelingt nicht auf Anhieb. Auch Ulf Merbold hat gewisse Probleme, aber er befindet sich nach wie vor in bester Verfassung.
Making the best of things depends upon agreement that the goal is worthwhile. That is the problem in a less advanced transport system, Greyhound bus lines. The company says its labor policies aim at survival, The union says it is greed. And that accounts for the overwhelming rejection by the union of the company's latest proposal for cuts in wages and benefits. In England, where some of the national newspapers are on strike, the issue is not only management's motives, but the motives of the government as well. We'll have a story about that. But first, Greyhound's problems from Ron Talley of KPNX Phoenix.
Here on the picket lines at Greyhound's Phoenix bus terminal, everyone expected the lopsided vote against returning to work. After all, the company's latest contract offer wasn't much better than the original one. In all, more than 9,000 Greyhound drivers said no to a 7.8% wage cut and heavy reductions in benefits. Here's why.
They're trying to take away what we acquired over the past 3 years. And they're trying to cut out the COLA adjustment for 2 years where we would not get any raise in pay to compensate for inflation until May of 1986. And then we only get half of that.
And then there's other things involved besides the wages. Like if they sell the company, that we do not go with the company.
The margin of rejection was 96%.
Union leaders, however, are asking the company to come back to the bargaining table as soon as possible. In fact, it now appears bus drivers might accept a small cut in pay if the question of benefits and other side issues can be resolved.
And they deal with an awful lot of problems, part-time help, runaround penalty language, split shifts, dual classifications, somewhat of a total deterioration of our present pension plan as we know it.
Greyhound executives won't comment on this latest contract vote, at least until morning. There's no sign they want to go back to the bargaining table, and there's every indication they'll keep the buses rolling. Right now, Greyhound is serving only 500 of its 14,000 destinations, and over Thanksgiving, buses averaged about 25 passengers each. But the question now is whether or not the company even wants to resume labor talks. In Phoenix, Ron Talley reporting for NBC News.
London's Fleet Street is no stranger to labor disputes, but this one came as something of a surprise. There were no newspapers at all over the weekend, and today only 4 major dailies were published. It began last week with mass picketing of a small newspaper chain in northern England. Under new labor laws brought in by the Conservative government, only workers directly involved in a dispute are allowed to join the picket lines. And the courts fined a printers union $300,000 for bringing in outsiders to protest against the firing of 6 workers. The union responded by closing down Fleet Street on Friday night and asking other unions to support their challenge to the labor code, a possibility that's being discussed tonight. Trouble with the unions has brought down 2 British prime ministers in the past 10 years, Edward Heath in 1974 and James Callaghan in 1979. No British trade union leader likes the Thatcher government's labor law, but most of them believe that this isn't the right time or the right issue for another all-out confrontation with the government. Patrick Brown, CBC News, London.
Here's a busy day in the life of Senator Bill Armstrong from Colorado. You would think being a United States Senator is the most important thing in Bill Armstrong's life, but it isn't. Listen.
The most important thing in my life is my personal relationship with God. Being a senator is rewarding, but it's also very demanding. And of course, I have the same day-to-day pressures as any other family man. So I turn to God every day for guidance and help with my problems. The Bible says, in everything you do, put God first, and He will direct you and crown your efforts with success. If you would like to experience God's power in your own life, you can. A new paperback book has just been published that can help you. It's called Power for Living. It will help you find strength and courage and start you on the way to the greatest experience that any human being can know, a personal relationship with God.
You can get a free copy of Power for Living simply by calling this number. It is being presented by the Arthur S. DeMoss Foundation to celebrate the year of the Bible. Power for Living will help you meet your problems and challenges and win. To get your free copy of this helpful book, call this number toll-free, Remember, there's no obligation, no one will call, and no one will visit you. This 144-page book will be mailed to your home. Call this toll-free number now.
Power for Living can help guide you to a whole new way of living and succeeding. It worked for me. Try it.
To get your free copy of Power for Living, call this toll-free number now. There's no obligation, no one will call, and no one will visit you.
Let's now sing the praises of the long-range forecast. It provides much-needed information. It might even be correct. Best of all, it doesn't require looking out the window. The long-range forecast is out for the coming winter, and we shall return to it in a bit after we look out the window in the Midwest where they could use any cheering up available. The View is courtesy of WTCN-TV Minneapolis and their 11 p.m. newscast Monday.
Good evening. Topping tonight's News 11, we've made it through the worst of yet another dangerous winter storm.
It's a huge storm that has fouled things up in several states all across the Midwest.
And tonight, the snow keeps on coming. We've already gotten more than 11.5 inches from this latest storm, on top of the double-digit snowfall Mother Nature plopped on us less than a week ago. But traffic tonight is moving in spite of the snow and ice, and there are no serious problems resulting from tonight's snowfall and icy roads.
Go forward. Straighten your wheels out a little bit. Yeah. Just rock it. You'll be able to get up.
Many streets were an absolute nightmare throughout the Twin Cities. Scores of residential streets remained unplowed most of the day. This is the second big storm in less than a week to hit Minnesota, closing hundreds of schools and businesses. Even by Minnesota standards, 2 feet of snow in November is a lot. Many people, after shoveling their way to the street and rediscovering their cars buried somewhere under there, found they couldn't go anywhere because many streets remained plugged with snow. But some motorists certainly were thinking about other places.
I don't like it myself. I'd rather be somewhere in the sun drinking champagne.
This storm has left a path of closed highways, clogged roads, and stranded travelers across 7 states. In Sioux Falls, the snow plugged up highways and made travel impossible. Various spots around South Dakota reported anywhere from 18 to 15 inches of snow whipped around by 40-mile-an-hour winds. Several airports were also closed. In Colorado, the skies are clear, but the roads sure aren't. There's 2 feet of snow on the ground, and drifts of up to 20 feet have been reported. Stapleton Airport was closed for almost 24 hours, but reopened late today. However, holiday travelers didn't find much consolation in that. The delays are long and frustrating. And in Omaha, 10 inches of snow led to plenty of fender benders. The slick roads pulled buses and cars into ditches, and the heavy snow forced the airport to close down. Scenes like this were commonplace today all across Nebraska, Iowa, South Dakota, Colorado, and of course, right here in Minnesota.
Last year, when others forecast a harsh winter, the furry caterpillar watchers, the sunspot watchers, even the Farmer's Almanac and others, the National Weather Service was almost alone in calling for a milder winter, and turned out to be mostly right. Today, the government's long-range forecaster, Donald Gilman, predicted this winter will again be a little warmer than normal, except in the center of the country.
Mostly mild, with a kind of a changeable break in the middle of the country.
Normally, the coldest winter air is over Alaska and Canada and sweeps down and across the U.S. But this winter, that colder air is expected to be centered further away and won't be swept as far south. So it may be somewhat warmer than normal over most of the West and the East, especially along the coasts. Only the Plains states and upper Midwest are expected to be colder. Also, the Pacific wind called El Nino, which last winter brought unusual storms and flooding to the west, now appears to have run its course. So the Weather Service forecasts much of the country may be drier this winter: the Southwest, northern plains, and northern New England. The only areas where more snow or rain is predicted are the Northwest and the Midwest and lower Mississippi Valley. How accurate does Gilman think all this is?
The probabilities, that is the frequency of being right, runs on the average 65%.
But Gilman concedes forecasting is somewhat of a gamble. Even 65% accuracy is only 15 points better than flipping a coin. Robert Hager, NBC News, Washington.
Even if the government's forecast is wrong and the winter harsh, one forecast is dependably reassuring. It will get warm come next spring. That is nature's way. But man also is a part of nature and has a terrible power to change nature now. The subject here is what is called nuclear winter. What you're about to see is part of a presentation made by Dr. Carl Sagan of Cornell University at a conference on the world after nuclear war. Not the day, but the season after.
Using computer models, we have analyzed several dozen nuclear war scenarios and have investigated their effects on the global atmosphere and climate. Our baseline case was a 5,000 megaton war in which less than half the existing world arsenals would be exploded. A combination of military, urban, and industrial targets, mostly in the northern hemisphere. Air bursts over cities ignite flammable materials over vast areas. Ground bursts generate enormous clouds of fine dust. Explosions over cities, forests, and petrochemical facilities would produce huge plumes of black, sooty smoke. Burning plastics and other synthetics would produce a wide variety of toxic gases. The fires would burn for weeks. The largest fireballs would reach into the stratosphere, burning nitrogen and destroying the ozone layer that shields our planet's surface from dangerous solar ultraviolet light. Thousands of smoke plumes, carried downwind and merging with one another, would blanket northern mid-latitudes in a few days. By blocking the sun's light, they would alter the atmosphere's heat balance and disturb the climate on a global scale. On the ground, the obscuration of the sun would, in a matter of days, cause inland temperatures to drop well below freezing, killing vast numbers of plants and animals. The amount of sunlight reaching the ground would be very low, perhaps too dark for plant photosynthesis. For months, there would be a dark, cold, and deadly nuclear winter, no matter in what season the war might occur. Beneath the clouds, virtually all domesticated and wild sources of food would be destroyed. Most of the human survivors would starve to death. Even a small nuclear war, involving a mere 1% of the world arsenals, could create enough smoke to cause such catastrophic global temperature changes. The shroud of fine particles in the northern hemisphere, still fed by fires on the ground, would block the sunlight and be heated by it. This causes smoke and dust to be driven by the temperature difference across the equator, bringing the cold and the dark to the southern hemisphere. After a few months, most of the particles would settle out of the atmosphere, revealing a defoliated surface still frozen in patches, even in the tropics. The conditions may be so severe and the ecological links so badly shattered that human survival anywhere on the planet would be jeopardized.
Heading all of that off requires a long-term effort. In Israel, the difficulty is more immediate. Mystics there say the doomsday war of Gog and Magog, the Old Testament version of Armageddon, will start today, Tuesday. For a week, pilgrims have been praying at the tomb of Abraham in the West Bank town of Hebron, seeking divine intercession to head things off. Well, so far as we know, so good. So let us take advantage of such time as remains for some more news on a reel.
Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir in Washington did not seem disturbed that Mr. Reagan said U.S.-Israeli cooperation on security must not cost the U.S. its Arab friendships.
I hope and believe that our visit will be a great contribution to the deepening and strengthening of the friendly relations between the United States and Israel.
Lebanon's President Gemayel met with Pope John Paul Monday to talk about peace in the Mideast. It was once asked, how many divisions does the Pope have? The same question about strength in politics applies to Gemayel. In Beirut Monday, reports of new fighting between his forces and guerrillas. In Tripoli, ceasefire talks between the PLO factions were stalled. Regardless, Gemayel hopes papal moral leadership and Italian troops in Beirut will help see him through.
The place is Mutlag in West Germany, and it appears that on Monday, a second shipment of U.S. Pershing missiles arrived there in parts and under heavy security. The first shipment arrived Saturday. There were protests and arrests, but on Monday, West German Chancellor Kohl said he had some good news. He said Soviet leader Yuri Andropov wrote him to suggest Moscow might reconsider its decision to halt the Geneva talks about limiting the missiles in Western Europe.
It was 6 tons of gold bars like these, a pile about the size of a casket, that the robbers took last weekend. Police were checking traffic. They don't know where the gold went, but they think it left by car or van. And they think the $37 million theft was an inside job. The robbers got through security, which was supposed to be foolproof. Fingerprinting is underway, but the insurance company involved thinks only a reward will solve this case.
The hot ticket this Christmas, the Cabbage Patch Doll. Each one is different. Each has a birth certificate and adoption papers. That's made some people mad. They say, 1, it smacks of buying babies, and 2, the Cabbage Patch is not where babies come from. Well, you certainly could have fooled these parents.
I don't know. Did Jack talk about that last night? Mildred
I'm
told
sure
me.
Liz will have something to add.
I'd like to hear the whole story.
I wonder if Liz told...
Let's find out about it right now.
In New England, people aren't satisfied with only half the story, so they turn to WBZ-TV with Liz Walker and Jack Williams for the whole story.
Liz!
And as far as taxes in New England are concerned,
that's the story.
What did I tell you?
WBZ-TV, the station New England turns to.
You must think you're the only one who has to call home 5 times a day because your wife drinks.
How you doing, honey?
The only one who rushes home at noon to make sure the kids get fed.
Bill, you're supposed to have lunch with the client today.
The only one who has to ask
I once worked with an assignment editor who'd gone through a nervous breakdown. He'd spent some time in a hospital, and by the time I met him, he was determined not to let it happen again, no matter what the executives did to him. Remember, he said, it's all part of the treatment. You never leave the grounds of the institution. What he meant was the world is a crazy place. And that's a worthwhile way to sort out some of what comes from the management suite. But then again, as the Not Ready for Primetime News suggests today, he may have had the wrong institution in mind. John Hitchens reports from Barcelona.
The attractions at Barcelona Zoo this weekend were as varied as ever. 8,000 animals and 550 mammals. They were all on good form, but there was a definite feeling about that this time they weren't getting their fair share of attention. Yes, seeing is believing. The star attraction at Barcelona Zoo this weekend was that most dangerous of species, Homo sapiens. At first glance, there wasn't a lot to distinguish him from the rest of the apes, and the chimpanzees behind him were very unimpressed. For 3 days, Spanish actor Albert Vidal has been playing the role of urban man in a compound in the middle of the zoo. He's had an office, complete with typewriter and telephone. And his interpretation of a neurotic business executive, busier but no wiser than the apes, has drawn huge and sympathetic crowds. As part of the exhibition, they're asked to comment on Albert's display and say, for instance, whether they find man a nicer specimen than the chimpanzee.
Do you think man really is like a chimpanzee?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. For me, exactly.
Tell me what you think of the man in the cage.
Well, I think that is very interesting experience, and I never see another.
Would you like to see more men in cages?
Yes, I like, and the child also.
Albert's cage, albeit one without bars, has all the props to get him through the day. Like other primates, he has to exercise, so there's a bicycle to help him, even though he infuriates his keepers by never taking his exercises properly. He sleeps on a bed outside and takes an unhealthy number of pills and tranquilizers. And his meals are brought to him at regular intervals by his mate and creative advisor, an Australian actress. This lunchtime, it's fish fingers, lettuce, banana and Coca-Cola.
We've done this simply as a presentation of something which isn't meant to be seen as something very intellectual or psychological or symbolic. It is simply what it is.
Like the other apes, Albert doesn't talk. To the crowd, to the other animals, even to the BBC. His 7-hour ordeal each day is all mime. To explain why he's doing it would mar the integrity of his performance, he says. But he does occasionally shake hands with the crowd. In return, they throw him peanuts and things that are bad for him. As his 3-day incarceration draws to a close, you get the impression that Albert Vidal is starting to find the zoo animals more agreeable company than his closer relations.
A Christmas gift from Radio Shack.
Before Christmas, they claimed they were bored. But then I found Radio Shack's incredible selection of electronic games. He's rescuing the fair maiden with the Kingman game. She's exploring dangerous new worlds with Zackman. And with the Alien Chase game, he can do space battle with an opponent or by himself. There are more gifts if anyone's bored. I won!
Fascinating electronic games from $7.95 to $59.95, only at Radio Shack.
How much faster can one antacid be than another? 3 times, 4 times, 10 times. Meet new stronger formula Ryapan Plus. Sodium-free, made to neutralize more acid. In laboratory tests, it starts to neutralize acid in seconds, 10 times faster than the 2 leading liquids. 10 times faster. It's long-lasting. And Ryapan Plus is sodium-free. No wonder it's doctor recommended. In lab tests, works faster. Long-lasting Ryapan Plus.
Batteries.
Battery.
Buying batteries.
Battery.
Can be an expensive habit.
Battery.
Unless you buy GE rechargeables. They cost more, but they can be recharged over and over up to 4 years. Just 2 GE rechargeables used 10 hours a week can outlive all these alkaline batteries. Cotton balls.
Cotton ball.
GE rechargeables. You can recharge them over and over. But we only charge you once.
Tuesday, it's a 2-hour blowout for the A-team, and that means double the trouble. There would have been more, but somebody ate the script. 2 hours of the A-team. Then it's lullabies for Laura, now that she has a baby.
I don't believe it.
He's mine.
But who's the father? It couldn't be Remington Steele. Tuesday.
Be there.
Thursday, Howard's exposed in the police corruption sting.
This information's gonna have to circulate. I failed you, Frank.
Will desperation lead to tragedy? Hill Street Blues, Thursday.
Time now for Sports Talk, and it's our last chance to plug Monday Night Football on ABC. We do that partly because pro football ratings are slipping lately, but mostly because there isn't much else going on Monday nights in the way of sports. Coach Don Shula picked up his 139th victory in 197 games, and he agreed to stay in Miami, turning down that $1 million offer from the New Jersey Generals. A lot of people probably missed the final moments of the Miami game. We'll correct that after we check the numbers on 2 or 3 slates.
This portion of the program are pretty well marched out, I reckon. Before muscling the kids out of the way Thursday, you probably saw some of the Thanksgiving Day parades, then Army-Navy, then halftime shows Saturday and Sunday. Enough is enough, and too much is unhealthy, you say. Well, coming from editor Jamie Malvin of our Los Angeles bureau, some vinegar to cut all that chicken fat. It's Saturday's Doodah Parade from Pasadena. It was organized in 1976 as a spoof of the very serious Rose Bowl tradition. It has become a tradition itself, but even that hasn't ruined it.
What I bought.
Is this the safest one you can buy?
I'm all the same. We have any Band-Aids? Oh, did I get a deal on this?
But the label says...
Label? What label? I just bought Baby Mumsy, this great little thing. What's wrong?
Baby Mumsy swallowed it.
Before you buy any product, consider these safety tips to make your choice more sensible. Check product safety features, read labels carefully, use product only as directed, and write the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission for free information on shopping for safe products. Writing can't hurt you. Not writing can. Write Shopping for Safety, Washington, D.C. 20207, or call toll-free.
Children from all over the world come to Children's Hospital for the very best treatment and care.
This year, WBZ-TV has joined forces with WBZ Radio in offering their support by encouraging you to contribute to our Children's Hospital Fund and Telethon.
Find out how your group or organization can get involved. Call us. It'll make your holiday season extra special.
The WBZ-TV and Radio Fund for Children's Hospital, 787-7185.
TV4's Afternoon Fleet is in port.
Well, that's just marvelous.
with New England's closest encounter.
Nothing but all day, all night.
There's nothing quite like the Love Boat.
Louise?
It could be the affair you'll never forget.
Gotta promise you won't tell anybody I have her on board.
Or the night you'll always remember.
Oh, yeah.
So if you still believe in love...
Got a lot of opportunity.
On the Love Boat, weekdays at 4, right here on TV4.
The fact that the news changes daily means stories do get lost along the way. Then one day you turn around and say, well, whatever happened to... fill in the blank. For example, in August, Filipino opposition leader Benigno Aquino returned to the Philippines despite a certain danger. The danger was, as it happened, very certain. He was shot when he stepped off the plane. There were demonstrations and questions, and there was to be an investigation by Mr. Aquino's opponent, the man in power in the Philippines. Well, whatever happened to that investigation? And what kind of investigation was it, anyway? Correspondent Neil Davis reports.
The 5-member commission visited Manila Airport, where Ninoy Aquino was assassinated on August 21, immediately after arriving from Taipei on a commercial airliner. Aquino was escorted from the aircraft by security troops. Newsmen on board were prevented from leaving the plane, but a television crew kept their video camera running, and the shot that killed Aquino was heard about 8 seconds after he left the aircraft. In this reenactment staged by the authorities, Aquino was allegedly killed by a lone assassin on the tarmac after he stepped off the emergency stairway. The commission members went through the same procedure, and it took them more than 13 seconds to go down the stairs. The most important witness to testify so far is the chief of the Aviation Security Command at the time of the assassination, General Luther Custodio.
I was relieved as of 22nd of August 1983 of my command.
The former security chief claimed that he didn't know which plane Aquino would be on, nor at which bay the aircraft would discharge its passengers. But a detailed plan drawn up the day before Aquino's return to Manila revealed that the plane would be directed to gate number 8, where Aquino was in fact killed.
This drawing, you would have noticed the reference to gate number 8, is it not? Or you should have.
There were several heated exchanges between General Custodio's attorney and lawyers representing other groups entitled to question the witness.
If there were no bullets, how come the killer was killed? How? Anna Magbet.
Your Honor, please.
1
minute, please.
The no-nonsense chairwoman of the commission, Corazon Agrava, has kept a firm hand on the hearings and has been strictly impartial. The strong conviction among most Filipinos is that some person or group very high in government circles was involved in the assassination of Ninoy Aquino. President Ferdinand Marcos himself referred to one of the most persistent rumors.
The leader of the government, including the First Lady. And talking about the First Lady, I understand that she is being blamed in many ways.
The First Lady, Imelda Marcos, is a cabinet minister, governor of Metropolitan Manila, a member of parliament, and her critics claim she has ambitions to succeed her husband as president of the Philippines. Marcos is in poor health and has been under pressure to name a vice president. Imelda Marcos, as a member of the executive committee from which an acting president would be chosen, was a candidate.
That I am resigning from the executive committee and that my public life is coterminous with that of President Marcos.
But on the same day it was announced that after a plebiscite in January, the executive committee would be abolished and that the Speaker of the House of Parliament would become vice president. As a member of Parliament, Imelda Marcos is eligible to become Speaker of the House. Neil Davis, NBC News, Manila.
This plane flies donated kidneys to waiting patients. It uses a special aviation oil because a kidney on life support has only hours to get to its recipient. In freezing conditions, that all-weather oil, developed by Phillips Petroleum, saves time that would be lost preheating cold engines. And that could save the patient years on dialysis. Kidney looks very good. Fine products for you.
Fred Astaire, Carol Burnett, Dick Clark, Sammy Davis Jr., Neil Diamond, Elvis, Judy Garland, Bob Hope, Lena Horne, Elton John, Janis Joplin, Michael Landon, Peggy Lee, Dean Martin, Paul McCartney, Shirley MacLaine, Ethel Merman, Marie Osmond, Patti Page, Dolly Parton, Dinah Shore, Frank Sinatra, Barbara Streisand, Ben Vereen, Stevie Wonder. Here's television entertainment Sunday.
When Dan Bloom was a kid, as it turns out a Jewish kid, in Massachusetts, he was confused because he couldn't write Santa Claus for presents. Santa Claus is not part of the Jewish tradition, but explaining that to the children, surrounded as they are by Christmas, can be a tough job. To help, Bloom, who now lives in Nome, Alaska, created 2 Yiddish characters, a pair of grandparents named Zeta and Bubba, whom kids can write to and get an answer. Christmas has a bit of Hanukkah in it, historians tell us, so now the favor has been returned. The tradition takes another turn. On the subject of tradition, no turns but a twist from Bob Nemo of WTMJ in Milwaukee.
With its boughs lightly dusted, their saw biting at its bark, the holiday ritual began. Soon this tall white spruce will celebrate the Christmas season at the nation's capital, set aglow with thousands of lights and decorations. But the tree's hidden meaning this year is rooted here in northern Wisconsin, a 50-year-old product of the old Civilian Conservation Corps.
Okay, guys, that's good.
Men like Bob Felch planted the forest from which the tree comes, back when a depression made times tough.
They really grew, I'll tell you that.
Referring to themselves as youngsters back in the 30s, it's only right some of them would return today to help harvest a Christmas gift to the nation.
Well, I tell you, I planted some, but then I got to be district freight line driver for the CCs, and so I hauled the trees in for the boys to plant.
At that time, there wasn't too much work to be had, and it was a job. It made men out of a lot of kids.
With 52 feet of the white spruce suspended from the snow, 27 feet wide, the question becomes how to ship it safely to Washington.
We're going to have to bring the branches in close to the bole of the tree. We're going to have to bring them in so the tree's only 9 feet wide. So we're going to have to take it from 27 feet to 9 feet.
President Reagan will help light the tree on the Capitol lawn December 14th. Bill Hudson for NBC News, Park Falls, Wisconsin.
Green has been a good enough color for a Christmas tree for as many years as those men have worked around them. And good enough for our money, too, until now. Representative Ron Paul, a congressman from Texas, says the government is about to change the paper money from green to pink, blue, and who knows what. He said he got his information from Catherine Ortega, the nation's treasurer. We'll see. Fact is, people will take the money no matter what the color, as long as it's legal tender. And at this time of year, parents will stand in line to give merchants their money, especially if they get a smile for it. Mary Wallace of KNBC Los Angeles with a story without which it wouldn't be the season it is.
These miniature musicians are part of an elaborate electric menagerie designed to diminish a child's fear of the photographer's studio. The studio in this case belongs to the photographer in this picture.
Usually kids compare the studio with a doctor's office because they're scared of the doctors. Then when they come in the studio, they think, here is the doctor's office.
With the flip of a switch, Mikhailian has found his niche. Nestled neatly out of sight, he takes the pain out of a young perspective's picture.
When the child comes in with his mother or father, the mother and father come here and say, oh, look at Joy or Jimmy. Oh, how nice place is it? Just sit here, and they don't say anything. And they don't know even we are going to take the pictures. It takes maximum 3 to 5 minutes.
Even though Mikhailian has shortened the actual time of the photo session, he's made the most of a child's actual attention span.
You can see that all the movement is really natural. With the hands, with laughing or exciting, everything is really natural.
Despite the sights and sounds designed to frame the young customers, there's one thing Mikhailian forgot: better magazines in the waiting room.
We're for today, for daytime the breezy way, for our magazine, for game shows too. People are talking to Nancy and you. We'll board the logo just for play and give the people score their say. We're for today. We're for today. We're for today.
Did you know high blood pressure affects many Americans, especially those who are overweight? You can lose weight if you change your eating habits to include low-calorie foods like these. One such food is seafood, and as part of a balanced, low-fat diet, it can help you stay trim. So, watch your blood pressure, watch your weight, and watch what you eat. A public service message on behalf of the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute.
Here are 50 reasons why there's a United States Air Force. No doubt you can think of 200 million more. Aim high. Air Force.
Here's the top story. Up there, the scientists of Space Lab 1 have begun their experiments, and they're sleeping in shifts after lifting off quite nicely Monday morning from Cape Canaveral. The European Space Lab was carried into space by the shuttle Columbia. There are 6 astronauts. 1 is a West German. There are 9 days to the mission, and so far everything is, in NASA-ese, A-OK.
Speaking of shuttles, remember the special commemorative envelope the post office sent up with the shuttle last August, and that it tried to sell for $15.35 each when the shuttle came down. The envelopes didn't go as well as the post office hoped. 1,000 still remain. They are still available for the same price and still bearing the express mail stamp they had, dated August 1983. More on the subject of knowledge and experience. A Rutgers University professor in Newark has decided that the students in his course in human sexuality are, quote, very naive. He has a solution. He's assigned a field trip to New York's 42nd Street so they can look around and take notes. The course, by the way, is a joint offering of the Women's Studies and Zoology departments of Rutgers. We made a mistake. We gave the wrong name for the reporter on the Christmas tree story. We are sorry. The right name is Bill Hudson. Bill works for WEAU of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and we promised to put the right name on the right check. We have dealt with Monday's weather earlier on, so let's not talk about it. Let's go on to Tuesday. Rain for the northern half of the East Coast, light snow from the Rockies across to Ohio. Everyone else, the official short-range speculation says sunshine.
A professor at a university in New York has invented a new lock which responds to the speaker's voice. It's called an open sesame lock, based on the tale from the Arabian Nights where the words open sesame were the charm by which the robber's dungeon flew open. What the professor has missed is the word charm, because it is by charm that a nonprofit television program has been opening doors now for more than 15 years, beginning its 15th year this month. I speak of Sesame Street, product of the Children's Television Workshop. The charm, the magic, worked and works everywhere. Avram Zaritsky of Overnight put this together from everywhere. Open Sesame.
In meiner Hängematte bin ich ganz allein. In meiner Hängematte kann ich einsam sein. Denn wenn sie schwingt, mal hin, mal her, im Studio hier oder am Meer.
من الآن ستصير ناجحا جدا.
قالت الزوجة.
شكرا للحرف نون.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 שבלולים. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 שבלולים. קום שבלול. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Sesame Street teaches the beginnings of proper language, no matter what the language, and it uses riddles as one way to teach. Here's a riddle. Where does the present include the past and future, the singular include the plural, and the masculine include the feminine? Answer, the state of California. For example, what follows are some rules and interpretations found in most of the California codes containing state statutes. These come from sections 11 through 13 of the Health and Safety Code. Quote, the present tense includes the past and future tense, and the future the present. The masculine gender includes the feminine. The singular number includes the plural includes the singular. Close quote. Mind you, this is supposed to make things more simple. For lawyers, one supposes, surely not for normal people. The state of California argues that without a rule on gender, for instance, A woman might insist a law referring to its subject as he applied only to men. A few codes do vary the format, at least one of them in a way that lets you know immediately who you are, sort of. Consider the business and profession codes of the state of California, which take care of the tacky pronoun matter with this rule: each gender shall include the other two. That's what happens when lawyers get a hold of English or sex, and so it goes.
We're down to 4. Good night.
Thank you.